right, welcome back to episode 5 of the Press Finance podcast. We've got a very special guest today, Tahlia. She's a real estate agent from Logan. She's here to give us all things information about real estate and the market, what's going on at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of scarcity and a lot of shit going on, so keen to hear her take. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tahlia. So I am a real estate agent. I sell in the Logan area.
Yeah, wonderful. And how long have you been an agent for?
I've been an agent going on 3 years now, so not too long, but in saying that, I wouldn't say my age precedes me. I think it's the agent that works the hardest that wins.
Absolutely. What made you get into the industry?
Honestly, it was a complete accident. I didn't mean to. I was 17. I needed a job. I was just spam applying on Seek. And then the only place that actually accepted me or got back to me for even an interview was a Remax office, which at the time I had no idea what Remax was. I thought it was like maybe an admin company for something. But I went to the job and it turned out to be real estate. I didn't even know what an open home was. I had no idea how I got the job, but really grateful that I did.
Yep, and then here you are.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good story. I think a lot of people do fall into their careers on accident. I know I did, and I know a lot of people did as well. You sort of just go about what you think is your career of choice or whatever, and then you get knocked into a certain road or path or meet someone that introduces you to the right person, and then all of a sudden, the rest is history. You're in a whole new career and in building a whole new life, so that's good. Are you seeing a lot of people are starting to find real estate as like more of a dream job for most people? I think a lot of people are really interested to get into real estate because there's obviously really high earning possibilities there, and it's also a lot more of like a exciting workplace, if you want to call it that.
Look, especially this generation, I think we can all relate to that. Everyone wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to die. I think a lot of people, they see the facade and they want to get into real estate for, the Mercedes, the BMW, the nice houses, but they don't see the behind the scenes work that goes into it. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of phone calls. I mean, there's been so many nights where I've been eating McDonald's in the office, haven't gotten home till like 10 o'clock. So it can be very rewarding. As a lot of people say, it's the highest paid hard work and the lowest paid easy work. So there are real estate agents out there that make less than a Woolworths worker. And then there are obviously agents out there that are making $5+ million a year in GCI. So it's just all about what you put into it.
Absolutely. And I think it is one of those things where if you put in the amount of effort that it's worth, you'll be rewarded. But I think a lot of people also come into it thinking it's a lot easier than it is. I know a lot of real estate agents that work every day of the week, and probably even more than every day of the week, if that makes sense. I think they're definitely one of the hardest workers in most industries. I definitely take my hat off to you and other real estate agents, definitely. So what's something that you're seeing from a client perspective? Obviously, there's lots and lots of new buyers, existing buyers, types of parts of the market, but specifically first home buyers. There's obviously that new wave of buyers. What are you seeing the most coming from them? What's their type of ideal home? What are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to buy? What's the type of asset they want?
Yeah, so look, in this market, as you guys know, affordability's changed. So those buyers that were essentially after perfection, they've now switched trajectories and they're now looking after potential. So that's what we're seeing a lot in this market. People don't necessarily want, the flashy houses, the shiny things. They want things that they can add value to and an area that they can really see themselves in long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see a stat somewhere. I don't know how accurate it is, but I know that the top realestate.com search used to be for pools. Now it's granny flats and dual living. So what do you think about that? And are you seeing that come through as more of a target market?
Absolutely. So again, it comes down to buyers, they don't want perfection, they want potential. So a lot of the time they know that the properties that have the pools, the properties that have all the work to them, a lot of the time, the sellers have high expectations and what they want price-wise. It's also obviously a different price bracket. Whereas right now they're looking and opting for properties like bigger blocks, things that they can add granny flats onto, because you got to think, especially our investors as well, you can add a granny flat onto the back of a property, and nowadays you don't need a big block to do it at all, and you're still getting the same rental return as you would if you were to pay the money and divide the titles.
100%. And it is becoming super common. Like obviously there's heaps of gurus online that push it, and there's a lot of people that are actually implementing it and making lots of money. You can double your rental income and all the rest of it. So it's definitely a good strategy. Also good for the people that want, granny flats for backyard offices or for their parents to live in or their kids to live in. I think it has so many different users, which is what makes it so good, because it doesn't have to be for renters or for investors. It can be so many more things, rather than just being a granny flat where you just rent it out and make money from it, or kick the grandparents out too. Now back on your agent. So obviously people that are entering the the business. What's a trait that you're seeing for newcomers into the industry that isn't going to allow them to grow at the rate they want or make them really successful and achieve the things they want to in real estate? Obviously, there's lots of bad traits coming in. People think it's easier than it is. Are there any bad traits that you think that are really obvious?
One of the biggest things at the moment is perception. I think obviously social media, we got to keep up with the times, and it's obviously important to make sure that you're marketing yourself. But then I see a lot of agents, they've never even sold a property before and they're out here, 3:00 on a Wednesday, they're out doing social media videos or just things that aren't dollar productive, where you really have to be a telephone terrorist when you start your career. I remember days where it was like 8:00 in the morning till I'd literally prospect until it was rude. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there was no time limit. It was just until I start getting sworn at because I'm calling them too late. That's when I'll stop. You really just have to go all in with real estate. The rest of it will come later, but I think it's important, it's all good and well to post 100 videos, get all these views, whatever, but if your community doesn't even know about you, then what's the point?
100%. I do think there is a good flip side of that as well. I think social media is one of the best ways to advertise yourself for free most of the time, depending on how you're doing it. But you can pretty much put out a piece of content and it can be viewed by millions of people overnight, which is really beneficial depending if you want views or leads or whatever you do want to achieve from it. So I definitely think there's a good balance if you can do the work and service the clients that you've got, provide a good value like to your existing clients where they'll then refer you to their friends and family and whatnot. And then you can then make content or advertise yourself from an experience like that and maybe get testimonials and things like that, which you do very well. I think that's the best way to do it. You sort of have a good mix of both, be very in and also online. So yeah.
And look, social media has been one of my greatest assets. The connections I built through social media in industry and professionally with future sellers, you name it. Like, believe it or not, it's the older generation that's there, looking at your Instagram stories nowadays before they're calling you in to,
which is wild.
Sell their house. It's crazy. But look, it has been my greatest asset in many ways. But in saying that, if you don't have the results to back it, then what's the point? It's all good and well, as I said, just listed, out and about in my community. But if they go and look you up on realestate.com and you've sold 2 properties in the last 12 months, you're not going to get called in for the business.
100%. And there is also the other side of that where people are very good at advertising and then they're not very good at performing. Like there's so many people that have not striked gold or been lucky, but have built a really good lead generation and then they don't know how to service their clients, so they don't have the capacity to. A lot of people don't have the machine behind them that it would take to service the amount of leads they're bringing in from online platforms. So you've got to make sure that you build that machine before you intake the amount of work. Otherwise, you're going to fall and fail, and burn and crash. So yeah.
Absolutely. And do the ugly stuff before you do the pretty stuff. So before you're out posting just sold, just this, does your community know about the result? Have you gone and dropped your flyers off? Have you gone and, called your buyers and let them know that it's sold and tried to help them find something else? I think people are so quick to jump on the social media straight away without doing the nitty gritty. Because if you're not doing the nitty gritty, someone else is doing it for you.
100%. There's always somebody that's going to outwork you, no matter how hard you are working, which is one of those things that you don't realize because some people think, it's probably a little bit of like self-delusion, but if you feel like you're going 110%, there's someone else that's effortlessly doing more than you. And it's crazy to think because, you might be literally like against the wire, like you literally can't do anything else, but these people are just performing on a whole nother level and they've got teams behind them like marketing agencies and shitloads of agents or admin or brokers or things like that behind them to not just execute like the deal that's coming in, but so many more like that. And I think that's where you've got to build that machine behind you, not just sort of wing it and be a solo operator and just hope for the best. You've got to have the people in the right place and the structuring so that when this starts to produce the amount of leads that you're planning or hoping, you can actually execute them.
And I think Tom Panos, he said it quite perfectly. I think it was a podcast or something I was listening to once upon a time, but you don't have to be good, you just have to be there. It's better to be good, focus on being good. But there was times where I was, 18 years old, I was still learning. But in saying that, I didn't get the business because I had more experience than my competitors or because I was better than them. I got the business because I was faster, and sometimes that's all it takes. And then skill comes over time.
Yeah, 100%. And especially with things like we do here where, you're constantly educating people, especially around finance. It's very hard for people to understand. A lot of people go a lot of their life without knowing a lot of the fundamentals, which is really scary. So if I can, or if other brokers and other people in the industry can educate, more people are going to remember you when they have a question. which ultimately will build that trust and probably lead to a sale. So it's where you've got to put in the effort that looks unrewarded, but then one day it'll come back to you, because you can't measure somebody that's watched a video of yours 2 years ago and then they've reached out to you now. Like, there's no way of measuring if that come from social media or not, unless like you had some crazy way of doing it. But the hardest thing to do is put out amount of effort you do without seeing the reward. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get to that point where they get to the reward because they get fed up with the results they're not getting. And it's pretty unfortunate, because most people, would have succeeded if they stuck at it for a little bit longer and pushed harder.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it also comes down to everyone wants instant gratification. Like, it's only just sort of now in my career that I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to get inbound business and people calling me. Before then, no one knew who I was. I'd cold call, they'd be like, who, from where? You really had to focus. You had to focus on building a name for yourself. Now I'm lucky enough where obviously I still put in the work to prospect and get business, but I also, in my core market only, obviously, I still get a lot of people that reach out to me now. And that's because I put in the work. Like, it's crazy. Cold calls I made even 2 years ago, you don't forget about them, but you kind of just keep them in the pipeline and stay in touch. They'll reach out to me sort of now. Oh, hey, Tahlia, you came out and you gave me an appraisal about 2 years ago. Now we're ready to sell. And it's like the work that you do now is what's going to reward you tomorrow.
Absolutely. And I think so many people forget that, because like I said, it's so hard to measure, because it's not like you can go onto your Meta ad manager and work out exactly who clicked on it and then reached out to you in 12 months time. It doesn't work like that. It's more of a click-through rate. So when you have people coming in from that direction, also a big thing that's been a massive thing for me is the referral, like your existing clients that you service. You wouldn't believe how far a good service can push your name. You know what I mean? The as well as a bad one. The bad words spread faster than good ones, but the amount of power in somebody referring you to another friend or family member of theirs is phenomenal, literally like amazing.
Oh, absolutely. It's much easier to retain a client than find another one. So obviously treating your buyers correctly is important. Your buyers today, your sellers tomorrow. Even if you might not think it at the time, and they tell you we're here forever. You never know. Situations change, circumstances change. Even if they're not selling, even if they do stay there forever, it's one, just have a human aspect, treat them right. And two, word of mouth, as you said, it goes a long way. They might not be selling, but they might know someone who is. And real estate's one of those things. You might only transact once every 10 to 20 years, but when you do it once, you want to be that person that's on their mind.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that you remember forever. It's like, you and I both are involved in someone's most exciting or stressful part of their life. And you've got to be that support system, that person to lean on, person like shoulder to cry on if something is not exactly the way they thought it was, which happens all the time with finance. Obviously, people come in with an expectation, and we're unfortunately the bearer of bad news 99% of the time, because we're the ones going, well, this is what you think you can afford, but this is what you can actually afford. And normally those numbers are not similar at all.
Yeah, they don't align.
So when you have to break that news to the client, normally it's a bit of a wow, this is becoming more real than I thought. I thought I was in a position like this, and I'm actually in a position like this. And then by the time they get to an agent like yourself, they have a bit more of a clearer understanding on what they can afford, if they have pre-approval, obviously, which a lot of people don't. But that's why you've got to be prepared and work with the right people that are not going to just be people that just service you. They're going to be the person that is there for the journey, that understands you, listens to you, helps you, and advises, not just does the deal and walks away and never talks to you again.
Absolutely not. Like there's a property I've got at the moment. It's settled back in January. I'm still keeping in touch with the buyer, helping him fix up little things. I'm not expecting anything out of it, but just because I've never been the agent to, okay, settled now, see you later. That's not how we operate. I think it's really important to look after your people, because as you said, they're going through a lot of the time, whether it for better or worse, they're going through one of the most life-changing moments that they've ever had to deal with. Yep. A lot of the time we are the bearer of bad news. We are the ones that are copping the forefront. But if you know how to handle it and you understand, you understand why they're feeling the way that they are, it makes it a lot easier to help them out. So you've also just got to be a good people person. I mean, you can do 1,000 courses that you want, but at the end of the day, if you don't have people skills, no real estate course is going to teach you how to deal with someone when they're crying because an offer didn't get accepted, or, when someone's just passed away and they really need, not just an agent, but someone that's there to support them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. 100%. And it happens all the time. You'll see people that sort of go into this with a false reality of what's happening, or they're actually going through it for not a good reason. Obviously, you see lots of different things, especially with finance. There's things like debt consolidations and all the other things.
The 3Ds, debt, I can't even talk. What is it? Debt, and divorce.
Yeah, there you go. They're the 3 worst things. So when you're unpacking one of those things with a client where they might have put themselves in a really bad position, normally that experience isn't great. Like they've made the mistake, they understand they've made the mistake, and now you're trying to provide a solution for that mistake. It's not normally a cheering and a happy relationship or an experience. But when it's all said and done, they appreciate it because they realize what they've benefited from putting things together and probably structuring it a little bit better and speaking to someone sooner rather than later. Like we've had lots and lots of clients come through that have not been too far gone, but people that probably would have benefited from reaching out to a broker or someone like myself a little bit sooner, because most people think they handle it, or they like a lot of business owners especially, they're really good at doing their role. So say for example, they're a trade, they're really good at performing that trade, but they're not an accountant. They're not good with their books. They're not here to track every dollar, count every cent, but that's what we're here for. You know what I mean? So
but sometimes they don't know that though. Exactly, they think that we're only here for one thing. Like even I've got now, sellers will ring me, hey Tahlia, I need to be on the market by Friday. I need an offer by this date. And I go, why? Oh, because we put an offer on here. We didn't want to appoint an agent. And it's like, hang on, I wouldn't have just told you guys to rush into the market. We could have put a game plan in place so you had a much more smooth experience. Truth be told, there's no perfect way to buy or sell in the same market.
No, yeah. It's always stressful.
Yeah.
I promise you, no matter how it is, it's always stressful. It can be less stressful. There's things we can do to make it less stressful, but essentially it's big amounts of money and it's normally someone's livelihood. So the chances of that being not stressful is very low. Like I've had some people that have just breathed through some of these settlements and deals and they didn't even care, but I've had some on the complete other end where they're rethinking every single one of their entire life decisions until now to make sure that this is the exact right decision they could make. So understanding it is going to be stressful no matter what, whether it's a good stress or a bad stress, but you've got to have the people around you to make sure it's as least stressful as possible.
And that's where, as you said, it could have benefited them reaching out earlier, whether they're looking to, get a new loan or whether they want to sell their house, reaching out to those, advisors and those people earlier on to help you put plans in place so that when you are ready, it's not just like, whoa, and you're not rethinking those decisions. You've got plenty of time to think about it. But look, same as you, real estate agent, mortgage broker, that's not our job. Our job is to solve problems. We're problem solvers.
Yeah, 100%. We're here to provide solutions, not cause any problems.
Absolutely.
Which, some people probably could do with getting the hint because I don't think everyone is like us, but there are definitely some people that cause more problems than what they're worth. But if you get the right agent, the right real estate, the right mortgage broker, right accountant, it can be very, very, very easy to understand where you are and where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people always will have this stigma around mortgage brokers, real estate agents, anyone that's sort of making good money, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
100%.
You get bad doctors, you get bad lawyers, it's 100%. Every profession, you get bad police officers, like it's all relevant. And you just got to make sure that you're partnering with the right people. Do due diligence as well. Like I'll have sellers that will call me out and go, all right, yeah, no, we've got another agent coming out on this day. And it's like, okay, I can appreciate that. It's your largest asset. I think that you should be getting multiple opinions.
100%. Yep. And it's one of those big selling points, especially for mortgage brokers. We're free to consumer. Obviously, we earn our money from the bank, which is completely unrelated to coming out of their pocket or anything like that. So that's a good selling point on our end because we provide, like I've got over 83 lenders. So you have that option instead of going straight to one bank and then just getting whatever deal they have, and it doesn't even have to be a good one for you. So it's unfortunate, but so many people are so loyal to, say, one lender, but they'd benefit so much from hearing a mortgage broker just present some other options.
Yeah, but that's also the same as people looking for agents. Oh, I want to go with this person because they're my family friend. It's like, okay, but how are you going to have a hard conversation with your family friend if you need to? We see that day in, day out.
Oh, I could imagine. Yeah, exactly.
And or I want to go with this agent because they're charging, flat fee or they're charging 1.8%. And it's like, okay, cool. I can do flat fee as well. But in saying that, there's absolutely no incentive there for me to, whether I sell it for a suburb record or whether I sell it for the same price that your neighbour just sold for, I get the same pay. Whereas, whatever I charge in commission, that's the stake of investment that I now have in your property as well. It's in both of our best interests to get you the highest price. I also know, from a business standpoint, I've got 2 other people on your street that want to sell with me in the new financial year. They're going to be watching what I'm doing.
Yeah. 100%.
And if I get a good result on your house, they're going to call me up for the business on theirs.
Exactly right. It's an investment for yourself and your business and your brand and your reputation. And I think a lot of people try to fight with price, and Obviously, there's lots of aspects in our business that are similar to that, but strictly the consumer mortgage broking side, we're pretty good because it's the set rate. Like we can't fluctuate things at all. But for yourself, there's so many people that like to attack the one part that you get paid from, which is your commission, which I don't believe in, because you want them to be as invested as possible. And if they're willing to cut their commission in half, what does that say about the real estate agent?
Exactly. If the agent's going to negotiate on their own paycheck, then that tells me a lot about their inability to negotiate. And I probably wouldn't trust them with my largest asset, if I'm being honest. 100%. You get what you pay for. There's always going to be someone out there that's cheaper. But in saying that, you want someone that's going to get you the best price at the end of the day, not a 100%. Discounted agent.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people get that wrong. Obviously, when it comes down to it, it's a lot of money for someone to think about, but when in the grand scheme of things, when you zoom out, what's that over 30 years or 10 years of ownership of the property or whatever?
But if that agent's got negotiation skills and can get you an extra 50K on top of the sale price than what the other agent can, then what's an extra $2,000 or $3,000?
Exactly right. And yeah, a lot of people just get blindsided by the physical number versus the overall gain, which unfortunately is why we have to deal with a lot of the problems we do every single day. Now, going back onto market topic, obviously, there is a little bit of scarcity, not a lot, but there is definitely a little bit, especially with the new, first home buyers and all that coming into the market. There's lots of crazy things that people probably haven't heard of as a new buyer, like words like rate rises and things like that, and budget changes. All these things are really scary for someone that hasn't experienced this, and 9 times out of 10, a new first home buyer hasn't. So are you seeing pushback or hesitancy or anything that's a little bit more of a irregular experience when you're dealing with a first home buyer?
Yeah, look, it's no secret that our buyer capacity is definitely reduced over the last few weeks. I think we're seeing that industry-wide throughout Logan, Brisbane. Stock has increased to 20%. So we're up an extra 20% in stock levels as well. I think now what I'm starting to see is, especially first home buyers as well, because you know what they're like, they're quite hesitant. They're quite emotional with their purchase as well. Yeah. It's not like an investor where they just have to make it make sense number-wise. But now what I'm finding is a lot of those buyers, they have, instead of fear of missing out, which is what we were seeing even 2-3 months ago, they've now switched to fear of better opportunity. So it's really about educating those buyers into making them see value in the property and move forward.
Absolutely. And we see it all the time. Obviously, especially first home buyers, they're very dependent on people in finance. So mortgage brokers, banks, all that sort of stuff like that, accountants, which is a good thing. Like it'd be better us than them trying to be dependent on a parent that's
Absolutely.
being in debt their entire life and is doing no good.
I wouldn't represent myself if I had to go to court.
100%.
Put it that way.
That's
I wouldn't perform brain surgery on
100%.
myself.
Yeah. So why try to do it all at once on your own? So that's where I think a lot of the time they just need the support that a lot of the time they don't get. Where we're right, I think residential mortgage brokers are writing nearly 80% of all residential loans right now. So it just shows that we have such a good grasp on the market, and everyone that is going and transacting in residential real estate, they understand the value of having the options, having a broker that's there, not just for the transaction, but for their entire lifetime, whether that's car loans, personal loans, anything like SMSF, everything to do with your investment and personal home. And when it's a first home buyer, especially, they have so many questions, so many unknowns, and it's very hard for them to navigate that. But the good thing is we do this every single day. We've experienced almost every bad thing that could go wrong throughout a settlement process. I promise you, between both of us, we've had a lot of crazy things go on.
How long have we got?
Yeah, 100%. Not enough time. But that just goes to show, like, we are capable of answering a lot of the questions that they pop up from first home buyers. But it's definitely one of those things where you'll notice they don't understand what they're getting into. But then when they do, they're worried that they're not making the right decision, or they try to overcomplicate it. It's normally pretty simple, but you've got to make it simple.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. If you have the right person on side, then it's going to make all the difference as well, especially for first home buyers. A lot in this market, as you said, they don't know what's going on. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of fear, with all different things. So getting the right people on board definitely makes all the difference. I myself have a mortgage broker that I contact, quite frequently. Like, you've got to have the right people on board.
100%. And in terms of your local area, so obviously Logan, what are you seeing with the market there? Obviously, everything goes up and down. We've been in a very upmarket for quite some time now. What are you expecting to see around your local area, and what is happening?
Look, those sub-mil homes, they're still, quite fluid in the market. We're still seeing reduced numbers, but in saying that, we're still seeing, serious buyers, lots of first home buyers, still a healthy amount of investors, but definitely have picked up in terms of first home buyers. Again, it's hard to say. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't time the market. What I think could happen in 6 months could be completely different to what actually is going to happen in 6 months. I know thumb rule, generally speaking, after July 1st in the new financial year, a lot of our sellers, particularly our investors, they will start to sell because, new financial year, they're waiting for capital gains purposes or whatever it may be. So we will see more stock come on the market in the new financial year. And I know there is talks of more rate rises on the forecast. That obviously impacts buyers' borrowing capacity. I know everyone raves on about first home buyers, they have a budget of $1 million now, this, that on, 5% deposit. But it's like, one, who can afford $1 million loan on a 5% deposit? Two, if you actually look at it, we've had it at 3 rate rises since that got adjusted. Yeah. That's reduced buyers' borrowing capacity by 75K.
That's a lot of money. And I think a lot of the time people don't understand that. They might have heard how much they think they can borrow. All these schemes, look, a lot of my clients actually don't go down that route. Look, we're very investor heavy when it comes to clients through our business, but the first home buyers that we do have come through normally don't opt for those schemes because, look, they present okay, but then when you start to unpack what it isn't actually that good of a deal. And we try to educate our clients that are considering that as an option on what exactly they are entering. Obviously, there's all the different grants and schemes, so pick the ones that you think are going to benefit you, but make sure that you understand what you're entering into because it is a 30-year contract with whatever scheme you're putting yourself into.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it all comes down to having the right broker, having the right people on side so that you can get that advice before diving into something, as big as getting a mortgage for the next 30 years on a property that you're not even sure if is going to suit your timeline in the next year or so.
100%. Is there a particular area you think is yet to go, yet to pop? Like obviously there's lots of newcomers to the Logan area. Obviously a lot of people have but maybe realized it was a little bit more affordable than the places they had originally thought of looking, investing or living. Now obviously we've seen a lot of people move to that Logan area. Are you expecting that to continue to expand outwards, or are you expecting maybe another area to pop off, or what are you expecting?
Yeah, look, I think Logan was the underdog for quite a while. A lot of buyers, as you know, a lot of owner occupiers especially, a lot of investors too, they wanted to sort of change trajectories towards Gold Coast, Brisbane, because obviously they're the nicer areas on paper. But what we're actually seeing now is obviously affordability. They're all priced out of Gold Coast and Brisbane, and obviously Ipswich is a little bit far away from all the local stuff.
Very far, yeah.
It's a bit of a drive, so they're all sort of changing trajectories, and they're now coming to Logan and they're realizing Logan's not as bad as it is. It's 30 minutes on a bad day to the city, it's 40 minutes to the Gold Coast, it's near everything. I think Logan still has a lot of growth left in it. And then that obviously, I know Logan does have its demographic. A lot of people say, oh, don't go to Logan, this, that. But in saying that, the demographic shifts. The more owner occupiers that buy in the area, the better the demographic.
All the first home buyers are moving there and they're going to start small families. And obviously that'll continue to push the bad demographic out. Obviously as those pockets start to rapidly grow, and the people that were living there for simply affordability won't able to live there for affordability anymore, and then that'll continue to push that demographic, if we're talking about that, out further, which is obviously good for the area, which will allow it to grow as much as everyone's assuming it would.
Well, I grew up in Springwood in Logan, for those that are familiar with that area. But Springwood was never anything special growing up. Like, honestly, you dream of moving out of Springwood when you're a kid.
The goal was to leave.
But now it's so interesting because that sort of whole side of the highway has changed and it's now blue chip suburb. And you think of that and that's just absolutely mind blowing. And you're starting to see that happen already. Like, we've got a private hospital in Springwood. People are now starting to knock down the properties and, new builds, and which develop, then obviously all the streets and neighbours around them start to follow. So the area that I live in now is not the area that I grew up in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point that you brought up, is there's going to be so much more development happening, not just there, but everywhere. And I think a lot of the time we're going to see a lot of these satellite cities or those pop-up cities come up randomly, because there's going to be a lot of development somewhere in a very short period of time. And people are going to realise that they don't have to live in the Sydney's or the Brisbane's or the Melbourne's. Like you don't have to live right in the CBD. You can actually live out and have all of the things that you would get in a city or whatever else you're trying to achieve. And a lot of people's jobs are now remote. Like I feel like every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh, I've just gone working from home now and blah, 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 blah. So the real need for people to commute into the city and all that sort of stuff, like is not there anymore, really. So
well, it's crazy. Even you'd remember like Beenleigh when we were kids going out there, like it was a lot of old properties. Now you drive through there and it almost feels like it's becoming a CBD, obviously a lot more high density living has been approved. So you're seeing a lot more of those buildings, same as Springwood, because I think you're right. They are trying to build those sort of satellite cities that you've got in between Gold Coast and Brisbane, which is going to be good coming up to the Olympics because a lot more houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I think that was a really good episode. We unpacked a lot there. So once again, thank you so much, Tahlia, for spending your time out of your day to come and talk about your lovely job and what you do. I think we've unpacked a lot there. I think the viewers will really get good value from that, hearing about what Logan's doing and how it's performing and what you're expecting. So really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks.